Lesson 2.6, Creating a Complex Model. In this lesson, you'll learn how to use the 3D modeling techniques to create a complex model. You'll learn how to use multiple viewports to create a drawing. Back to Vectorworks, front and a right view. Let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is to remove that sheet layer. So let's delete that, yes, because otherwise with the viewports already set up, as soon as I draw this it will fill in my viewports, but that's not going to help you at all. I'm going to select everything, so right click, select all and delete. So now I can get started with my bracket. I'm going to work in Imperial. So File, Document Settings, Units, and let's change this to Imperial. Feet and inches. And OK. So let's get started. I'm going to start with a rectangle. Double click on the rectangle tool. Now I know the size is in millimeters, so that's 140 millimeters. And it's 170 millimeters. So there it is, 5.5 inches wide, 6 3/4 inches high. Position at next click is turned off, which means that the center of my rectangle is going to be at 0, 0. And then I need this to be about 1/2 inch, so 0.5 of an inch, or 12 millimeters. So there's my first part, my extrusion. So I'm going to build this up as a series of parts, gradually adding and subtracting parts to get the result that I want. The next thing is the circle. So go to my circle tool, not the radius mode, I want to use the diameter mode. I want to find the center of my plate, so the center there. I want to come up about 40 millimeters. 40 millimeters, which is 1 5/8 inches. Let's just make sure that I'm square onto that. So square, click, and that creates my circle. Now remember, we've got this instant push-pull. If we pull that along and we click at the end, it extrudes that cylinder exactly the right length. Back to my selection tool. I've just used a keyboard shortcut, which is the X key. Allows me to select that, hold down the shift key and that, to extrudes, right click and add solids. Now if you're working in wireframe mode, you might find it easier to go up here and change to OpenGL. That's what I'm using. I've also gone to my OpenGL options and set my options to very high and also use shadows. So I've got part of my design already completed. Back to my circle tool, this time circle by diameter. So it wants to be a little bit less than that. So let's come across here. So it was 1 5/8. We need to do half of that. So 5/8 isn't quite what I was looking for. I was looking for about 18 millimeters. So 3/4 of an inch, that'll be fine. Click. And now what I can do is I can pull that through, pull that cylinder all the way through, hold down the Option or the Alt key, click, and it's now punched a hole all the way through. What else should we do? How about we put a fillet here? So it's about 1/8 of an inch fillet that we need there, 3 millimeters. My fillet edge tool. Now there's a fillet edge just there. Hold down the shift key, there's also one there. So I've got 2 fillet edges, enter, and you can see it's radiused where my pipe joins my plate. Now it's time for us to try something we haven't tried before. It's a snap, and it's called the Smart Edge Snap. If I double click on this, you can see that I've got the ability to snap to an edge. So Vectorworks will acquire the edge if the mouse follows the edge for 1/2 second, which is turned off, or I can use the T key to manually set it. I can snap to an offset, say 1/2 inch, and I can snap to extension lines, so click OK. I'm going to go back to my circle tool. What I'd like to do first is to find one of my edges. So if I hit the T key, see that dotted line running all the way through there? So that's found that smart edge. When I go back from that edge, I'm offset. Let's find this edge here. T key again, you can see it's projected all the way through there. If you find that it doesn't project it to start with, just move along that edge and click again. So I've got an offset from that side, and an offset from the other side, so I can click for the center of my circle. This needs to be just over 1/4 of an inch. 7 millimeters would be a great size. What's that about? Let's put in 7 millimeters and see what happens. So 7 millimeters still says 1/4 of an inch. We'll use 1/4 of an inch for today. So click, remember to pull that through down here, and it's the Alt or the Option key, and click. So let's try that again. Find that edge there, hit the T key, and find this edge and hit the T key again. Now it didn't work. Did it work straight away? No, I can't see the offset, so let's do it again. There's my offset. Offset and offset. So click, and this was 0.25 of an inch. Enter once, enter again, and that creates my circle. So I can grab hold of that circle, click, come all the way through, hold down the Option or the Alt key, click again. We've got this one over here to do now. So find that edge, hit the T key, find this edge, hit the T key. Now you might notice I don't go near the midpoint to find when I hit the T key. It always seems to cause me a little bit of trouble. So 0.25, enter once, enter again, and let's click, come through, Option or Alt, click again. And all I need to do now is to turn my view round. So let's grab that tool, we'll turn the view, and back to my circle tool. So I need this edge here, so T key, and this edge here, hit the T key, there it is. So Smart Edge, Offset, Offset. Just remember, I'm using the automatic working planes. Remember, my face has gone blue. That's what the automatic working plane is all about. So this was 0.25, enter once, enter again, click, come through, Alt key, and that's created the hole. So I have created that more complex shape using a series of steps, starting with the bracket, welding the pipe onto it, then drilling the holes. If you were building this in a factory, you wouldn't try to start with a block and then carve it out maybe. You'd start with objects. So you would start with a block, and then you would drill the holes, and you would weld the pipe onto it. Now that I've got my complex object, it's time to create some drawings. Now there is a command in Vectorworks which is really quick at making drawings, and it's called Create Multiple Viewports, but it is not on the Fundamentals workspace. So we have to change our workspace to something that we might be using. For example, if I've got the Architect workspace, I can change to that, or Designer, I can change to that. So I'm just going to choose Designer. Go to View on the menu bar, Create Multiple Viewports, this one here. If you've never used this one before, it is super cool. What we do is we tell it the viewport scale. I think 1:2 is the right size, half full size. Third angle projection, so the plan's at the top and the front view is below it and the right view is to the right of that. You might find these are slightly different when you get to these, so I want front, top and right with third angle projection. Click OK, and Vectorworks will create the sheet layer for you, and it'll create the viewports. And it has created them in the order you want, so they actually perfectly line up. Let's just change the rendering type on that. The rendering we've got here is hidden line. I want dashed hidden line, and then update. So that's pretty cool. Now there is something I'd like to introduce you to. Vectorworks has the ability to have multiple viewing panes. So what does this mean? We can split our view up, split it vertically, split it horizontally, and we can then have different parts or different parts of the design shown in different views. Let's have a look at this button here, multiple view panes. Click on that, and it's now split my view up. At the moment, all my views are the same. Right click, use same visibilities in all panes. I'm going to turn that off. And on this pane, I'm going to right click and I'm going to split horizontally. So I've now got two views. And this one here, I'm going to fit to page area so I can see my drawing. And this one, I'm going to change back to my design layer, and I'm going to change to a right isometric view. and Fit to Objects. On this view pane, I'm going to change back to my design layer, but you might notice I'm staying in a plan view. Maybe, for this particular design, it would be better if I change to a left isometric and Fit to Objects. So what can we do now? Why don't we have a look at this part here. I'm just going to zoom in, use my zoom tool, just zoom into that area. So I'm going to go back to my left isometric, so I'm just clicking in there to activate that view. I'm going to go to my 3D modeling toolset, and I want to find the fillet edge. So on the fillet edge, I'd like to fillet that edge, not that top one, the bottom one, that one there. Shift key, that edge, holding the shift key down, that edge, and holding the shift key down still, this edge over here, that one there, not the top one. So I should have 4 edges selected, and you might notice that I selected 2 edges in different viewing panes. When I click on the green tick, they all update, so all 4. So it's a way of selecting other parts of the model that are turned around. So what does that mean over here? Well, if we update our viewport, that's updated. So we've now got the ability to see my entire drawing in this view, plus I can see my model in this view, and I can see part of the model in that view, and I can work in either one. So I could, if I want to, start drawing on this view pane, and I could finish off in that one. It's kind of cool. So save your file if you haven't saved it lately. In this lesson, you learned how to use several 3D modeling techniques to create a complex model. You learned how to use multiple viewports to create a drawing.